Hello, this is Dion. Welcome to another video. Today we're reading the next chapter of Hermitcraft Genesis. I think we will just do chapter 8 today. Because, yeah, I did a quick recording session. And just want to see how it goes. But, yeah, I'll see as time goes on whether or not you guys prefer the longer videos or the shorter ones. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I just think doing chapter 8 on its own is fine. Perspective is Grian. There have been revelations and spoilers in the previous videos. But if you're just here and you just want to chill, that's fine. And yeah, if you do like these videos, feel free to subscribe. It would be nice. But of course, you don't have to. But I just decided to do this just to entertain people and to tell a story and practice. You should probably get right into it. Nice. Chapter 8. That can't be right, Grian whispered. A wave of unease rose in him as he stared at the red text on the screen. Grian blinked, wishing for the crackling of the speakers and to hear Julius's voice, that this was all just a joke. Not a good one, but it would be far better than the reality. It can be if the communicator he was using was lost or destroyed. Blake slammed the device on the table. I should have kept trying. I should have called Rose or Clara. It's not your fault. Haley put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You know just how capable your cousin can be. You believed he'd get back to you when he could. You couldn't have known something like this could happen. No, I do know something like this could happen. He never breaks down from a challenge. Blake closed his eyes, staring down at the table in front of him. Don't you remember how Ellie was back at school? I do. Haley nodded slowly. He was still young then. He's 19 now. Blake shook his head slowly. So much like his dad, it scares me. We'll find him. Excuse me, we'll find him. Beat said. You know we will. Blake didn't move for a moment before nodding his head solemnly. I wish I had the kind of faith you two have. At least you would know if your friends were alive. Julius may be stubborn, but he's also smart, Grian pointed out. He saved my life twice. He saved me too, Beat boasted. His quick thinking gave our friends time to save the day. They're both right, Haley said. Campbell wanted to kill me, remember? For my connection to Stacy and Lizzie? I remember, Blake sighed, looking over at her sadly. But Campbell didn't take my cousin. Do you know that for certain? Haley raised an eyebrow. I'm positive. He was looking into the second group. The same group those assassins came from. Some of them who knew who he was and might see him as a traitor. They might have... We need to tell Clara so she can alert Rose and anyone who might be able to help. Haley replied simply. I don't want to worry her. She's already lost so much. Blake bit his bottom lip. She lost a friend and my mother. She lost her husband and... You can't be so sure, Blake. You know that, Haley said. I'll tell her if you want. I know it'll be hard for her, but she would want to know. If he's out there somewhere, we'll find him. Okay. Blake breathed out a sigh, looking up toward the window. Tears brimming his eyes. Okay. Grian watched as the boy pushed himself from the table, walking toward the door, into the hallway. Haley stood for a moment, watching him before following, nodding toward the hermits. This is probably not the update you wanted to hear, she apologized softly as the group stepped into the hallway. It's not, Grian admitted with a weak smile. Something big is happening, that's for sure. And Campbell might not have any part in it. Beat shook his head. He's off who knows where to torture one of our friends. We will have to worry about Theodore for much longer, if all goes well, Haley said hopefully. Whoever this new leader is, they won't get what they want. We won't stop fighting. What does she want anyway? Grian asked. glancing over at Beat-Ups nervously. She certainly wasn't the one who ordered the assassins to kill us 2 days ago. She must be newly appointed. Haley nodded thoughtfully. Or there's more going on than we realize. That was what Julius was trying to figure out, Blake grumbled. See where that got him. We will find him, Haley confided firmly as Blake started his descent down the ladder. What's going on? Is everything okay? Eliza's voice trailed from downstairs. Can you get Clara for us? We need to talk to her, Haley called down, glancing over at the hermits. I think you should go down. You two should go down first. I don't want to leave you two up here alone. Grian nodded, following Blake down the ladder, jumping to the hardwood floor below. A moment later, Beat-Ups followed shortly behind, with Haley at the rear, as the four of them went over to the meeting area, taking seats. Eliza had already disappeared, looking for the older woman. Where did Clara go, anyway? Grian asked, looking over his shoulder toward the kitchen. She's taken the prisoners to Rose to deal with. Jem and Pearl went with her, along with Pearl's escort and Matthias. Pearl's escort still doesn't have a name. Leaves it simply. So there's no one else here. Beat-Ups grinned. You're an adult, last I checked. Blake smirked. Right. Beat-Ups chuckled, nudging Grian playfully. Do you want to bet how long it'll take to get her here? Not long, Grian gasped with a shrug. She's one of the ones who are supposed to be in charge. Suddenly, an explosion exploded in the distance as Grian jumped, looking behind him to where the sound had come from. That was a firework, Beat-Ups whispered. Instantly, Blake and Haley sprung to their feet, bolting toward the kitchen. Grian looked over at his friend, eyes wide. Someone was watching outside. Grian squeaked. What, really? Why didn't you say anything? Beat-Ups gasped. I thought I was imagining it, being paranoid, Grian said shakily. But I saw a shadow sitting in a tree branch through the front window. Beat-Ups got to his feet, walking over to the curtain as he pulled it back, peeking out the window. Where? It was at an angle. I saw it through the crack of the curtain near the ladder. Grian watched Beat-Ups readjust his position. You see anything? Not at the moment, Beat-Ups frowned, squinting just as the back door slammed open. Grian, Beat-Ups, get a bed ready. Haley shouted at the door. Technically, it would be at the door. Shouted by the door. By the door. Yes. By. Whew. Those are complicated. Haley shouted by the door. Eliza's hurt. What? Grian got to his feet. Haley and Blake dashed into the room. In Blake's arms was the young intern. Grian bolted for the sleepover room, Beat-Ups at its heels, fighting up Ed, and yanking the covers back. You could see Beat-Ups grabbing for his medical kit, placing it on the ground as the teens ran in. Blake rushed over to where Grian was standing, gently laying the limp form of the girl. Grian swallowed, seeing the familiar firework burns on her body, stretching down her arms, ash on her shirt, and burns seeping through any holes that had been exposed. Boys, we're going to need some privacy. Haley looked up at them in the morning. Can you wait outside? There's a question mark that's supposed to be there. You won't have to worry about it because you have subtitles. She'll be okay, right? Grian asked worriedly, shame and guilt pricking at his heart. I won't let anything happen to her, but I do need to take her shirt off. Haley narrowed her eyes at the hermit. Right, we're heading out, Grian said quickly as Beat-Ups giggled. The three of them rushing out the door. Could be just out the door. Out the door as Kate rushed in from the front door. A lot of doors. What's going on? There was an explosion. Kate's eyes widened. Haley sent Eliza to fetch Clara, Beat-Ups explained quickly. Eliza was shot down by a firework rocket. No. No, she gasped, putting a hand over her mouth. Is she okay? Haley might need help in there, Blake said simply, gesturing to the closed door. Is there anything else you need to be done? Kate asked worriedly. Nothing we can't do here, Beat-Up said with a reassuring smile. Reassuring nod. Kate returned the nod, slipping into the room as the door closed behind her. This is all my fault, Grian groaned quietly, putting his head in his hands. None of this is your fault, Blake said simply. I saw someone watching the base. Should have said something, Grian insisted. He must have seen Clara go off with Jim and Pearl and the other adults. He has to know no one's here to help apart from the children. What's stopping him from getting others to come after us? Blake put a hand on the hermit's shoulder, and Grian lifted his head, his tears blurring the boy's face. The front door opened from behind the boy, seeing Caleb, Isaac, Luke, Josh. What was happening when I was editing? Things have gone awry. In the hallway. Hey, that worked. We'll deal with that if it happens. But right now, we need to make sure Eliza's okay. What happened to Eliza? Alarm flashed on Josh's face, the boy's amber eyes growing wide. She was shot down by a firework rocket, Beat-Up frowned, looking over at the boys solemnly. Haley and Kate are taking care of her. But how? Who? Josh demanded, as Grian looked down at his feet. I'm sorry. A lump formed in the hermit's throat as he wiped tears from his eyes with his sleeve. Should have said something. What's done is done. Beat-Up's gray eyes softened. She'll be okay, you'll see. Grian let out a sigh, shaking his head, blinking away tears as he looked over at Blake sadly. I think it might be a good idea to let your aunt know what happened. We need her back here with the girls as soon as possible. Blake hesitated before pulling out his communicator reluctantly. I'll call her. Why don't you guys have a seat? We shouldn't be crowding the door like this. Sure, Caleb mused at the older boy, blinking at the others. We should scout around and make sure that man isn't lurking around. Yeah. Luke narrowed his eyes, his jaw firm, put a hand on the hilt of his sword determinedly. If he has it, we'll take care of him. Be careful, Blake warned, nodding over at the hermits as Beat-Up urged Grian toward the couches. I don't want any more of you getting hurt on my watch. Isaac chuckled. Oh, don't you worry about us, said Blake. We'll be fine. He won't even see it coming. Grian nodded, closing his eyes as Beat-Up helped him sit down. Thoughts swirling around his mind like a tidal wave. He heard footsteps as the boys left the room again. He loud, exasperated sigh. You okay? Beat-Up frowned. Do you need another hug? It's just a lot on my mind. Grian smiled weakly at the hermit. Just hope. Hey, it'll be okay. Beat-Up smiled encouragingly as Grian blinked, looking up into his friend's large gray eyes. We'll figure out a plan. She won't get away with this. We'll find Julius. I just don't know what to do, Grian whispered, not caring if Beat-Up heard him. He closed his eyes again, reaching out his mental hand towards Scar's leg, hitting the barrier again. A barrier he couldn't cross alone. Unfortunately, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in Chapter 9 next week. But I decided to do a shorter one because why not? Yeah. I did mention subtitles earlier, but yes, every chapter of the story has subtitles. Every video of the story so far has subtitles. The special kind, the one that I did, putting all of the chapters in there so that you can enjoy that while you watch me build. Of course, I'm doing this over a voiceover. I'm not actually reading while I'm building, but I think you could figure that out on your own. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to be there when the next one comes out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified. Of course, you can always just find it, or you can just figure it out later. It's not a big deal, but yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, whenever that might be. Goodbye.